Welcome back to another episode of Napp Motorsports. Today we're going to do a much needed refresh on the race car. So this car has been going for about 3 years since we built it without anything besides like one new brake, rotor, oil changes, and brake fluid. So it's definitely tired, and last time we were at Barber, we pretty much had to stand on the starter to get the thing to fire up. So we're gonna take it apart. Wolfie's here, Cam will be here in a minute. We're gonna pull the motor out today, take the wheels off, brakes off, and then the engine is gonna get rebuilt, sort of. I'm gonna do a head shave. I gotta clean the pistons to see how much I can take off for some increased compression. We'll do a skunk 2 intake manifold, Fluidampr pulley, boundary engineering, at least gears, if not a whole pump. I just want us to try to squeeze like 15 to 20 more horse out of this thing because that would be way better on track with a little extra power. So we're gonna get to pulling it out. I'm just gonna time lapse you guys in the corner. We'll rip the front end off and you'll see everything come apart pretty easy. So the lifts will make it go pretty quick. But that's a start for today. So by the end of the day, we'll have it gutted out into a sort of shell again. So we made pretty quick work of that. We pulled the motor out, we drained the diff fluid, trans is also out. Cam ripped off the wheels, brakes, and rotors. So this is pretty much as stripped down as it needs to get for now. We will be doing some things like rebuilding some of the wiring harnesses that are in the car, but for now we're gonna focus a bit on the engine itself. So let me flip you around. So this is just a bone stock VVT. We haven't changed anything. We've added like a fuel pressure sensor and a digital oil pressure sensor, but other than that, this is like what you would pull out of a stock NB2. It needs about 15 to 20 more wheels, so we're gonna do some things. We're gonna do a head shave. We're gonna fix some of the missing hardware that's on here, and we're just gonna fresh it up. I'm thinking if I have one, I'm gonna put a new valve cover on that will actually close all this back up, just so that like debris doesn't get all up in there. And then we'll powder coat it. I'm thinking black fade through to red, which would look really cool. And Fluidampr, we're gonna do the boundary engineering oil pump, and then just clean the whole thing up. New gaskets all the way top to bottom. Probably some new valve springs just to make it rev a little better. Valve job, head shave, and then clean it up. And the other thing we're gonna do is rebuild the wiring harnesses. So I'm planning on putting some like 300 or 350 cc injectors in here for flex fuel, as well as replace or rebuild the R8 coil harness. So I'm gonna start that from scratch. I'm also gonna start the injector harness from scratch and just have all new fittings, and then like things like this, which is our crank position sensor. I'm gonna put an OEM plug on here so that if I ever have to replace one at the track, I don't have to rewire it. I can just unplug and plug it back in. So the goal is to make this serviceable and nice. I'm back and forth on a radium fuel rail setup with an adjustable regulator just to clean this up a little bit, but we're gonna kind of see where the spend is at. We did build this on a budget last time. I'm still trying to build it on a budget this time. I don't want to do a crazy engine that I'm gonna feel bad if I blow up. So, but the budget is a little better now, and I want to make sure we do it right and that the car is reliable and makes as much power as possible. So today I think I'm gonna do the R8 coil harness because I have everything here to do it. I need to figure out what injectors I'm gonna run before I buy the injector clips. And once I have the injector clips, I can build the injector harness with all the coolant temp sensors and stuff like that. I'm also gonna be putting a Bosch KSP4 knock sensor on it, so I'll build that into the injector harness. We're going to do Deutsch connectors on this. We'll do Deutsch connectors on the chassis for the transmission plugs, and just Deutsch as much as possible, make it really nice and weather tight, and just a good, like a nicely built and reliable, and what I think the track car should be, or a track car should be in terms of quality build. Yeah, good bit of work to do. I'm just gonna kind of time lapse you through the things. So like building the R8 harness, we'll time lapse you through it. That'll be first. And then at some point I gotta take this off, take this apart and get the head machined. So we'll pull it off. We'll do a little inspection, see if anything's damaged. We'll send it off to my machinist. He will machine it, do a valve job. We do have to clay it first to see how much we can shave off. But we got a good bunch of work to do. This will be one video, all encompassing from teardown to reassembly and running again, whether that takes a couple months or not. But so I ran out of Tesla tape, which is the harness cloth tape, but I'll show you what I've done. I've kind of done preemptive work. I ordered more tape. It's Saturday today. It'll be here on Tuesday, which is New Year's. So we'll just wrap it up then, but let me catch you up to speed. So this is the coil pack harness, as you saw. The only thing I hate about these is that, first of all, grounds are shared. So 2 and 4 are a ground, and they technically can go together, and then they all join the rest to end up with one ground harness wire. So there's a lot of crimps. I don't know of a better way to do that. If anyone does, I'm happy to kind of learn as we go here. Otherwise, it's a lot of heat shrink, crimp connectors and stuff like that, and you can just see it bundles up, and it makes for a pretty thick harness here. I'd love to streamline that somehow. Maybe like non-insulated, just the little metal crimps and then some heat shrink or something. But for now this works. I've done this quite a few times actually, and it's super stout. I've never had one fail on me, and when it's all wrapped up it does look pretty nice. So I did run out, you saw I ran out of Tesla tape there, but this harness is done, and I've pinned it with a 4-pin Deutsch connector, which I will mimic in the car to plug into the rest of the chassis harness. And then here I rebuilt the cam and crank sensor harness. I cut the stupid 3-wire like rotary plug, I don't know if I still have it, this thing off, and replaced it with an OEM style connector. This way, if this crank sensor ever fails on track, we can just unplug it and plug this, like plug a new one in, and there's no drama, no rewiring trackside or anything like that. So serviceability, big +1. And then I built a new, we'll call this a jumper harness. So this is the crank sensor plug. It runs over, and it goes also to a camshaft sensor plug. So these all tie into the same harness. Power and ground are shared, and then yellow is cam sensor and white is crank sensor trigger. And those obviously also go to another Deutsch connector. And you'll see, so this is a 4-pin, this is a 4-pin, and then just for simplicity, I put a male on this one and a female on this one. So when you're plugging things in the car, if these are both male, you'd either have to label it or just know. This way you can't accidentally plug the wrong one in when you get to the car. So this will have a matching female plug in the chassis, and this will have a matching male plug in the chassis. And it just works out. And obviously this will all get wrapped up once the tape shows up. I ran this over because with the valve cover, there's some screw holes here. So we're gonna run some clamps to hold this up to the valve cover, just to make sure it's long enough. Injection harness, I'm gonna wait. I think I'm gonna run some fuel injector clinic injectors in here. So I'll figure out what plugs those are, and I will design it based off of this setup. The spacing will be the same, so that should work. And then I need to order a NA8 temp sensor so that I can use the plug that I have, and then just a spade connector. So that'll be injection harness, dashboard coolant temp, and ECU coolant temp. And then with the knock sensor down here, I'm just gonna make the harness include the knock sensor and the VVT sensor. So it'll just be one sub harness with all of this stuff in it. And then we'll have 1, 2, 3 sub harnesses that run pretty much everything vital to the car. There will be fuel and oil sensors. So here is fuel and here's oil. This will probably get mounted to a real regulator, and this one will stay here, but I'll run those off the same harness because they're 5-volt reference. So that'll be a separate sub harness. And then that should be it for sub harnesses on this, minus like the factory stuff for the alternator and starter. But those we won't change at all. And then on the car, I made one change that I've started to do to every single car. Even this car's got it here. So those of you that have worked on the plugs on the transmission know that the little spade connectors tend to break. They come, like they separate out, and when you're under the car trying to crimp it with a transmission, they're super hard. So what I do, again, is I cut them off and I put on a 2-pin Deutsch male on one of them and a 2-pin Deutsch female on the other, and then the transmission gets the opposite. And that's for the same reason as the 4-pin mix-up on the engine, because it allows me to plug it in blindly without, you could do it just reaching underneath without even looking, and you'll know that you plugged it in correctly. I will be going through the engine bay and replacing everything that isn't Deutsch and is aftermarket with Deutsch as we go forward. There's a couple things, like I've already done the fan. I did the fan a few months ago when I replaced it. So the fan is Deutsch now because it's an aftermarket fan. So we're just gonna go through and just kind of make things a little bit nicer, and then the car should be really nice to put together. We're gonna tidy up a bunch of stuff. We're gonna delete a bunch of wiring. Like we still have the headlight wiring, which can go. We're just gonna tidy everything up. Not shave the bay, just tidy it up, make it serviceable, and just make it just a clean example of a track car. So that's it for today. I'll probably pick you up on Tuesday when I get the Tesla tape in. I'm gonna try to do some other stuff in the meantime. It's also the holidays, so things are a little slow, but I'll pick you up when we start making more progress. I wanna finish the harnesses before I pull the head off, just so that I have it for fitment. Tesla tape showed up yesterday, so we have finished wrapping these. And I know this is not like motorsports grade harness. This is like, the motorsports way to do this would be like Ray Chem with like nice wire loops like Rob Dahm does on his stuff. I am not Rob Dahm. This is not a 4-rotor RX-7. This is a budget build track car, and this has worked forever for lots of people. So maybe in the future, if we develop this car more, we'll switch it over, and I'd love to do like a flying lead harness and make everything from scratch with like proper motorsports grade tough cell wire and all sorts of stuff like that. So this works for now. These two are done. I have ordered the stuff to make the injector harness, knock sensor, all that stuff. That's on the way, or will be. It's New Year's, so nothing has shipped yet. So that's all we can really do on engine block wiring side for now. But what I am gonna work on is switching the chassis side wiring over, because it's right here. So to do that, we're going to do just the two things that we have right now. I'm not gonna worry about injection yet. So we'll do the ignition harness, we'll switch that over to a Deutsch connector, and we will do the, currently the cam and crank sensor harness is not flying, or is not like a sub harness. So we'll just cut that, pin it for a Deutsch connector, and then put that on the chassis side. So should be pretty straightforward. I just gotta find where the plugs are in this mess. All right, so I've gone ahead and cut off, that is the ECU signal. I've cut off the wire for the coil packs, which you'll see there's 3 here, and then the wire for the cam and crank sensors. So there's 4, which we have a 4-pin Deutsch connector over there. I'll grab those sub harnesses. We'll come over here and we'll line the pins up. For this one, it'll be easy. We'll just cut it and pin it to match the pin out on the Deutsch connector. For this one, it's not much harder. This is 12 volt. One of these is 1 and 4, and one of these is 2 and 3, and then what we're missing is a ground wire. So we're gonna add a ground lead, and we're just gonna cut one of these off and then crimp on a new connector that with 3 ground wires coming into it. So pretty straightforward. And then I'll show you guys what I did over here. I did some stuff off camera while I was on the phone with Jesse from Beer Money Motorsports in prep for the drive-by-wire setup, but that should be pretty straightforward, and I'll explain that in detail once we get to the drive-by-wire stuff. For now, I'm just gonna show you the plug, but let's knock this out real quick. We're gonna do ignition harness later because this will be 8-pin, or maybe we'll start it now, we'll just cut it, and we'll just add a Deutsch connector here so that we're all Deutsched, and then we can do the rest of the wiring later. So we're gonna start with the cam and crank sensor connector. So it's this lead harness that we made, and it has a female Deutsch connector on the end of it. So what we're gonna do, just to make it simple, is I'm gonna pre-stick the male Deutsch connector in it, and then we can see where the pins are relative. So like top right, which in this case is pin 4, is gonna be pin 4 over here, but it's just easy to visually line them up. So I know for this guy, white with red is 12 volt, black is ground, white correlates to white on here, which is my crank sensor, and then yellow with the blue stripe correlates to yellow on this harness. So it's pretty much plug and play lineup, pretty easy. So I'm just gonna cut these flat, strip them back, we'll pin them into here, and the jumper harness will be all set for this, and we can put this aside until the engine's ready to go in the car. Okay, so this one is done. This is the cam and crank sensor plug. So female to male, plugs in, and it's watertight, which is nice, but we've got power, ground, cam, or crank and cam. So this is correct, this is good. Now we've got to do the ignition coils. So we've got, this is 12 volts, and I'll show you what we've got over here. We have a male, and this was done on purpose so that I don't accidentally plug these in backwards and like plug the ignition into the sensor spot and blow fuses and sensors and stuff like that. So just a little trick, don't use the same plug on the same setup if you can avoid it. So what we are going to do is, this is where it gets a little confusing because on my jumper harness, I always use red as power, black as ground. Here blue is power, and here blue is sensor 1 and 4, or harness plug 1 and 4, and green is 2 and 3. So blue to red, and then black to black, because we're gonna add this ground wire that I have made here. And then I'm gonna quickly look up which one is white and which one is red as far as cylinders 1 and 4, and I'll let you know. It's just gonna be a helpful tip even for me in the future to know which one goes where. So let me look that up and I'll pick you guys back up. I'm just gonna slide the Deutsch connector on it real quick and then I'll show you how it all lines up. Cylinder 1 and 4 is white, 2 and 3 are red. Maybe in the future I'll do white for 1 and 4 on harnesses just so it's easier, but grab the other end of this guy. We'll do the same thing, so I'm gonna plug it in part of the way, and then obviously I know red is over here, so we'll put that guy in. And then 1 and 4 is blue on this harness, and then 2 and 3 are red to green. So that is the combo. Unplug it. Now we're gonna feed these in. Until they click. 3 clicks, and then the ground wire goes into the other last spot. And we'll just do a test plug before we put the cap on it. So black to black, chassis blue to harness red, chassis white to harness blue, chassis red to harness green is correct. And the nice thing is, if I flip the sensors around, or the trigger wires around, Deutsch connectors are so easy to depin and repin that it's really not a problem at all. So that's done. And then I'm debating, so I kind of want to make this as easy as toolless as possible, I guess. So when pulling a motor, you have to unscrew these bolts from the engine. Whereas if I cut these and put them into a Deutsch connector, you could just unplug the grounds and leave the ground leads attached to the chassis and the ground leads attached to the block, and just have a Deutsch plug here, and it would be super clean. So I think we're gonna do that. I'm gonna see if I have a different plug that I wanna use. Okay, as promised, I'm gonna catch you guys up. So for starters, this is the alternator harness. This lead was like probably 3 feet longer than this. We had cut and spliced it together for whatever reason. Maybe the plug was bad, but I've now shortened it so that it's the right length to plug in and there's no extra stuff. There's still a bit of a mess down here with electrical tape and stuff that I gotta clean up like that. We've got the Deutsch connectors down there that you guys saw. Fuel system will be converted to AN. The fittings are here. I'm probably gonna chop it either here or farther back down there just to clean it up. And then I've got all of the Deutsch plugs here. So one of these is the ignition and one of these is the cam and crank sensor. This is the cam and crank sensor jumper. This is the ground jumper, which I'll show you on the engine in a second. And then fuel is going to be converted to a, I believe it's a 10 pin, so that I can run all the sensors through it. That'll be cut. I've ordered a bulkhead connector that'll go here, which is gonna be all the options. So I used to have a bunch of wires running through here, but fuel pressure, oil pressure, the 2 wires for sequential injection, VVT signal wire, all that's gonna go into a plug right here. And then on the other side, there will be a plug that goes into the ECU. It makes it really easy if I ever wanna add pinouts. I just pin a new wire in. So we've got the fan wire, which was already here. I did clean it up, I shortened it, took all the headlight wiring off of it. I could technically delete the diagnostics box, but I've already rewrapped it, so it's gonna stay for now. And I did leave the plus 12 volt here just in case we ever need that, but it's all tucked away. There's no extra wires over here. There used to be all the headlight wiring and garbage. So that is gone. And that's really about it for chassis stuff for now, until that connector shows up for the bulkhead and until the injector harness shows up. I'm gonna build the injector harness out first, and then I'll do the bulkhead so that I know I have everything I need. And then on the engine, I'll show you the ground harness that I made. I really should just move the engine closer, but we're not gonna do that, So this is the ground harness. It's 5 pins on the car. There's a dead pin on there that doesn't have anything at the moment. I ran all 6, populated all 6 pins here. In case I need to ground something else, I just have it. It doesn't hurt for it to be there, and it just screws into the back of the head. This way you're not trying to tighten. If you've ever put bolts like a ground on the chassis, it's a pain. So this way, we just plug it in. That's about as simple as it gets. There's just gonna be like a pile of 3 Deutsch connectors back here, 4 Deutsch connectors back here when we put it in the car to plug in. And then I have to run, there's the ground that goes from this side to the chassis rail. That one, I'm not sure if I'm gonna do a connector or not. I kind of just like the novelty of not having to use any tools to like unscrew a ground or anything like that. I have decided I am going full radium rail and pressure regulator. So we'll be mounting the fuel pressure regulator to the rail. It's kind of tough to see on this engine, but fuel pressure rail is on this engine, and there's a fuel pressure sensor on the back, because I always hated this. This was super sketchy to me, and I'd love to get it just like back here and just have that wiring harness come off. Oil pressure is gonna stay down here. That works. And then We're gonna do fuel injector clinic. 365cc is the smallest that they have. So that's what I based the plugs off of that I ordered. I mean, we have the coolant sensor stuff. That's all gonna be built into the new harness. That should be everything electrical wise. Jesse is gonna be sending me a new ECU from Beer Money Motorsports, and I need to order the throttle body. I could technically use the Bosch one that I have here. I have to buy it off of Barney. And then I need to figure out the pedal. There's either a throttle body mount, so you essentially run the cable to this sensor, and then it's just like another TPS, and the two are separated. So you can still do all the drive-by-wire stuff that you want to do through ECU control, because the ECU will control the actual throttle body, but you'll still have a cable, which I don't love. I'd love to fully get rid of it, which means a 350Z pedal that I have to fabricate a mount for inside, and that has a built-on TPS. I'm also gonna look at what we're doing for the Haltech setup on the other car here, because I might try to mimic that. So I'm probably gonna go the route of just fully removing the throttle cable. It seems cleaner. Again, less stuff in the engine bay is the real goal for me here. So I'm gonna think on that a little bit. I'm gonna talk to Jesse a little bit, and I'm gonna see what solutions there are, and then I will update you guys as we go. Next up is probably brakes while we wait for other stuff. I'm supposed to get the pads, or sorry, I'm supposed to get the rotors and the calipers tomorrow and Friday, and then pads haven't shipped yet, but we can do all the other assembly first, and then when the pads get here, we'll just pad slap it real quick. The goal is to make this thing rollable so that if I want to work on the NC or anything like that, I can push it off the lift and not like have no brakes on the car. So we'll get that knocked out this weekend, and we'll see where we go from there. I could start taking the engine apart also, I just kind of don't want to right now. So one thing at a time. Brakes next. I'm still waiting on one caliper setup from Rock Auto. It's out for delivery right now, but we're gonna do the other 3 corners. Well, I'm just gonna do the driver's side with you. I'll do the passenger side myself. But I'm gonna show you the difference between sport brakes and non-sport brakes. It's not massive in the front, but it's pretty sizable in the rear. So here are new rotors. This is front and rear. You can tell because one is vented and one is not. And this is front and rear of the old style, which if you lay them over top, there's like a 1/4 inch difference maybe. When you do the rear, it is, if I can center it up, quite sizably different. So I believe it's 1/2 inch all the way around. I'll get a tape measure actually. So sport rears are 10.75 and sport fronts are also 10.75, interestingly enough. Yeah, 10.75. So big upgrade for the rear. That tape measure is impossible to close by hand. And then these are the calipers. So these are Cardones. I got them off Rock Auto. Remanufactured sport brakes, and they were like 65 bucks a corner for the fronts, and I think 100 bucks a corner for the rear. Fully remanufactured. They have some sort of like powder coat on them, so they won't rot or rust. Nice zinc hardware, which we know is key. Comes with the e-brake stuff and everything. Comes with the brackets, which is the hardest part to get, and these are effectively brand new. So I have the right side, which would be the passenger side front, and I have both sides for the rear. The other driver side front should be here later today, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna put the brakes on, or rotors on, we're gonna put the carriers on, and then just loosely we're gonna mount the calipers. I'm still waiting on pads. I ended up going with G-Lock R10s up front and R8s in the rear. Says it can take up to 3 weeks for them to ship to me. So I've got a buddy bringing his S2000 over, so I need this lift spot. So we're gonna make it roll, and we're gonna push it out of the way for the time being. And then once the pads show up, 3 weeks from now, we'll probably have some other stuff to do to the car, like put the engine back together or something like that. So For now, the car will be rolled around, or rollable, I guess. It just won't be able to stop, but it doesn't have an engine in it, so it won't be driving it. I made an oopsie. I went to install the passenger side rear, and the rotor wouldn't fit with the caliper carrier, so I compared it to the old carriers that I had, and I had accidentally ordered a non-sport brake for that side. So I'll take you over here, but this side currently has nothing. I've ordered the right caliper for it, and it'll be here Tuesday. The front is done on this side. Ooh, here's the old one. And the front driver's side just got delivered. So if you saw earlier, the colors were all uniform. They were all like this weird green black color. The one that I ordered for the other rear corner is a different brand because this brand doesn't have any of those. And this one that just showed up, even though it's from the same brand, is different. So again, it doesn't really matter because it's a race car, but this is the front left. Hopefully it is a sport, but it's not gonna match, but it doesn't really matter. First things first, we're gonna put this rotor on. It's already cleaned. And if you're wondering why I've got this setup on here, it's because I have a Profab hub set. And that is the adapter to fit these. So we'll do that. I'm gonna throw the caliper on it once I turn it. Back the other way. Throw a caliper on it. Again, we don't have pads, but we will be getting those shortly. Brake line is on. We're gonna have to bleed the brakes later once we have pads in the other corner. So for now, we're just gonna leave it as is. Again, no pads, so it doesn't matter. The rear, let me take you over there. I already did it back when I was trying to figure out if I had ordered the wrong brakes. So the back driver's side is done. But that's it. Let's go for a walk. This is the same concept as the front. It's 2 bolts for the carrier. These do have a fixed pin up on top, so you remove the bolt from the bottom and you swing it up and slide it out. E-brake is on, and the brake line is on here as well. I haven't set the e-brake because I don't have pads again. So we'll do that later, but this is fixed. This one fit. This was the correct bracket and caliper. So just imagine the other side looks just like this and we'll be fine. So this is not a huge upgrade. The rotor size is nice because it's a bigger moment arm for the pad to grab. So if you're trying to think about steering a car with a really small steering wheel or a really big wheel, if you're trying to stop it from moving or even start it, having the extra leverage arm or moment arm makes a huge difference. So it will probably rear bias the car a little bit just because these pads these rotors are much bigger of an upgrade than the fronts were. But the fronts and the rears also have a bigger piston, so it's a bigger clamping force for the pad as opposed to just like a regular NA8 caliper. And with the manual brakes that this car has, it should be a pretty nice upgrade. And then with the nicer G-lock pads, we should have less, I don't want to call it brake fade, but there were a couple times at Barber where I was like, you could tell the brakes were getting tired. They weren't glassing over or fading out. They were also at the end of their life. So this should be a nice subtle upgrade without spending $600 or $700 or $800 or $900 on a set of Willwoods. So budget is like probably $350, $400 all in. The next thing that's probably gonna happen, the Bollinger order shipped. So all the plugs for the wiring harness. So we'll go back over, we'll keep wiring up the engine. We'll get all that done. I ordered a bulkhead connector, so we're gonna put the options port fixed to the wall. So you just unplug it from like a nice wall mounted thing. It's not a spin bulkhead connector, it's just like a regular 12 pin. I don't need that many outlets. I don't need that many pins. Those were like 29 pins minimum. I'd need like 7 or 8. So I got a 12 pin connector for the firewall in this car. So we'll get that pinned in, we'll get the wiring harness kind of finished up. And then once the wiring harness is done, I'll feel comfortable taking the motor apart so I don't need the spacing of anything anymore. So what you just saw in the car, let me go over this way, in the firewall is a 12-pin bulkhead connector, so it actually bolts to the firewall. And on the inside of the cabin, there's all the ports to pin in the Deutsch connector. And then on this side, there's all the ports to pin in the Deutsch connector, but it's the removable. So cabin side will be fixed, and then engine bay side will be unpluggable. So I have pre-run the injectors 2 and 3, the VVT plug, the knock sensor ground, and the knock sensor signal. It's a 12-port connector, so that's 5 of them. Pin 6 will be fuel pressure signal. Pin 7 will be oil pressure signal. Pin 8 will be fuel and oil pressure 5 volt is shared. Pin 9 will be fuel and oil pressure ground, that will be shared. Pin 10 will be flex fuel signal. Pin 11 will be flex fuel power. I can't remember if it's 5 or 12 volt. And then pin 12 will be flex fuel ground. So it'll populate the whole setup. It'll look super clean. Right now it's untaped just because I'm waiting until everything else gets here. But I should have all the other sensors tomorrow, so I should be able to build the rest of the wiring loom stuff tomorrow. I'm gonna kind of have to guess on location of like the sensor for fuel, and I gotta mount the flex fuel sensor in the bay to figure out where I'm gonna run all the wires for that, but shouldn't be too bad. I kind of know where the flex, or where the fuel pressure sensor goes based on the other engines I've done, so we'll just mimic that. But that's it for tonight. I'll pick you guys back up tomorrow when we get back to work. All right, so options port is fully populated. We've got the injector stuff up here with VVT. This is fuel pressure, we've got oil pressure, we've got 5 volt and ground for the fuel and oil pressure sensors. And then we've got the flex fuel sensor, which I have mounted up here. This is Bollinger Motorsports mount, and then I just put some spacers on it so that it can be clear of the lip on the firewall here. So we're gonna run 6 AN from the tank, or sorry, 6 AN from the return on the rail, which will be the regulator, which is right over here, to 6 AN back to the rail, or oh my God, 6 AN back to the fuel line, return line. And I've got adapters to adapt the return line to 6 AN. So we'll just have to make some lines, and I've got PTFE line. So we'll go from here back down to here. I'm probably gonna cut it somewhere, down here a little bit. And then this one will just go to the rail, and then the other feed will go from here to the rail. So fuel should be pretty simple. Nothing is pinned out on the other side of this. Currently fighting some back problems right now. A TENS unit has been keeping me alive for the last like 4 days, so I'm not gonna go into the car and wire it. I just wanted to get everything in the bay done. Let's do the first two.
You're on candid camera. Head on it and some rowdy cams.
I have a 4W head in the corner.
Do we have the gasket?
Yep. You do need more cam. It's spending its life at.
We're making up the difference in the cans.
We need to be able to carry 8,000 RPM to the top of TMP.
I don't know, if Bofi would sponsor me a set of cams, I could probably consider it.
Sponsor? Another sponsorship.
I'll let you drive it. So as you can see, the car is back under the cover. The engine has been taken apart. It has been machined. I'll show you guys that in a minute. and the brakes have been swapped and bled on this car, and they are ready to go. I didn't film any talking stuff like that. I just kind of time lapse the process, so I'll talk you through it now. With Dylan and Cam here, it's just easier to work, and it's more of a chill, like it was a Sunday morning. It's kind of a chill hangout time instead of trying to do content or whatever. So best of both worlds is you get a time lapse, we get to bump some music and hang out and talk and catch up. So what you saw there is we took the head off and then we put clay on the pistons. It's literally just Crayola clay. Put that on the piston, you put the head back on, you set the timing, and for VVT, you put the intake cam 3 teeth advanced, which simulates VVT at full advance, actually a little more than that, so it's pretty safe. And then you spin the motor over, and as you do that, the valve indents the clay, and then we cut the clay in half, measured it with a scale or a pair of calipers, and then you get your thickness. We wanted to take 80 thousandths off the head, so 0.080 inches off the head, which is 2 millimeters. We had 240 thousandths of clearance, so almost a 1/4 inch of gap before we hit the piston relief. That's 6.35 millimeters roughly, is a 1/4 inch. So obviously I'm not gonna take 240 thousandths off the head because, I don't know why not, but it would be way too high compression. It would be 14 and, it would be almost 15 to 1 compression if you took off a 1/4 inch of the head. Not to mention there's not that much material to remove. So I took it to my machinist and I was there when he did it because he was uncomfortable doing it. We took off 100 thousandths, which would take us from 10 to 1, which is OEM VVT compression, to 12.5 to 1. That is gonna cause some issues with tensioning the timing belt because the stock tensioner just doesn't have the play. So what we're gonna do is take 2 sliding tensioners and then you'll be able to take the play out of both sides. So that's what Quinn did on his. I asked Matt Weiser, shout out Matt if you watch this, what they did, and that is how they fixed the tension issue on his engine. So we're gonna be doing that to this one as well. And then, of course, when you shave the head down, your valve effectively opens farther out, if that makes sense. So if the valve used to come out here, but now it comes here, so the edge of the valve is going to be farther out where it meets the piston, which means we're gonna put it back together, we're gonna clay it, and we're gonna see that it is, you have your piston relief in the valve, you have your valve relief in the piston. The valve, instead of coming down here now, is actually going to come down over here. So I'm gonna have to Dremel out some of the valve relief in the piston just to give it enough radial space. The exhaust side wasn't even touching the clay, so we should be plenty fine there. We're gonna check it still, of course. So there will be some hand machine work to do on the pistons, which not a big deal. I did it on Dylan's, the engine that's in his car right now. There's a lot of tape, a lot of painter's tape, and a lot of vacuuming. But we'll do that, and then we'll be at 12.5 to 1 compression. This car will run E85 only. It has a flex fuel sensor in it, or it does now. So ethanol only. Thankfully we have a pump now, about 15 minutes away from me, so I can go fill up all my jugs before a race or track day or whatever. We've got a set of cat cams valve springs on the way from Bofi Racing, and I'm waiting on my gasket set and all that stuff. So before we put that together, I'm waiting on a few bits that should be here hopefully this coming week. We can put the head together, we can test fit it, and I'll go through the process of like seeing, where it's gonna hit, how I open it up, all of that stuff with you guys. And then we're gonna take the engine the rest of the way apart. We'll take the pan off it, we'll check the bearings. I'm gonna put new freeze plugs in it, and we're just gonna pretty it up again before it goes back in. I do need an oil pump still, and I need a Fluidampr before the engine can go back in the car, but everything else is on the way. So, fresh out of the machine shop, you can see there's some stuff here we gotta clean up. There's like folded over machining, or aluminum just from how much we took off. We did 25 thou per pass, so 0.025 per pass. And if you know, these are height pads that you are supposed to stop once you hit them. they were 41 thousandths down, so we have taken 59 thousandths beyond what you're supposed to from the factory. And you can see that because we are starting to get into the thread holes. I mean, there's still probably 100 thou right there before we actually hit threads. And same with this side, we're getting flats. So, and here was getting pretty close too with the rear neck. Obviously this steps down, so it's not a huge deal, and I don't use that port anyways, but this is as far as I felt comfortable going. This should be a crazy compression bump. The car should sound menacing with a high compression setup like this, and it should make the power that we want. So we've got the valves here in the box. I just had him clean this because it was dirty. And then this thing is ready to get assembled once we get valve stem seals. Gotta sit down because this, they don't make engine hoists or engine stands for tall people. But we are back. It is February 23rd. It's a Sunday, which means I get to work on my own stuff instead of customer cars. And it's time to get cranking on the track car motor again. So I have the head back. I'll show that to you in a minute. Got it back from machining. I have opted not to port it. It's a simplicity and time sake thing. If I blow this motor up, I want to be able to essentially just pop a head off, shave it, do the little work I'm gonna have to do here, put it together and run it. Porting takes a lot of time, makes a mess, it's inconsistent, and it can throw off flow characteristics cylinder to cylinder, so it's just, unless it's CNC ported, it's not really worth it, so we're just gonna skip it. That's an executive decision on my end. But I do have some exciting news. We are going to be tearing this the rest of the way apart, just to swap some bits over and whatnot. Boundary Engineering, if you're not familiar, I use their oil pumps on every single one of my builds for customer cars. They make high flow, high pressure pumps with a billet gear insert. So these are cast gears on a factory motor, and they tend to explode under high RPM driving like this, or high load driving like boost and stuff like that. So Travis and the team over at Boundary Engineering agreed to help sponsor this build. So they sent out a pump, which will be here tomorrow, and I'll go over kind of the specifics of that, as well as, it'll actually probably be out before this video, a comparison video on kind of what pump is best suited for your build, when you would need the Martinware treatment, when you'd want a billet backplate, that type of stuff. They have a lot of options. It's kind of confusing if you don't know. So I'm gonna do a video highlighting when is best for what and all that stuff. So that should come out shortly. But for now, we gotta tear this block down so that we can reassemble it, put their pump on, and by Friday, it needs to be ready because Fluidampr is coming, as they sponsored a pulley for this. And we're gonna do a little bit of content around the engine, and we're gonna be putting the pulley on and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff to do between now and Friday. It's not really a whole lot, but I gotta do it kind of off hours. So today we're gonna rip this the rest of the way apart. So we're gonna take the water pump off, we're gonna take the oil pump off, pan's gonna come off, and I'm gonna check the bearings, and then we'll clean it all up, we'll paint the pan. I'm gonna degrease the block, replace the freeze plugs, do all that kind of just stuff. And then I'm gonna assemble the head, which I'll show you in a second. And we'll set it on here, we'll test fit, we'll figure out what we have to machine for clearance around these pistons here. We'll do that, we'll clean everything out, we'll put the pan back on, and we'll hopefully have a long block assembled either today or tomorrow, depending how today goes. So. So what we have here is oil pans removed. I'm not going to be removing this rear main housing piece for the rear main seal because we don't need to. Everything looks pretty good so far. Obviously could use a couple more oil changes, as you can tell with the black oil down there. But what I'm going to do now is pop off cylinder 4 main cap and cylinder 4 rod cap. I'm just going to check the bearings. If those are good, the rest are likely good. We're not going to be doing pistons, rods, ARP main studs, anything like that. This engine still ran great, so I believe everything is fine. if there's no scoring or anything like that. I do have an extra set of bearings if we have to, but I would love to not have to throw those in here. So let's we'll pop some of these off and see what we're looking at. So I don't know if it'll focus. That's like perfect. There's like a little bit of debris implantation, stuff like that, but there's nothing that I'd be able to feel with a fingernail. It's nice and smooth. So we're gonna go ahead and put some assembly lube on this and throw it back on. So I checked the other ones. As you can see, the crank is out of the engine now. And this is cylinder 1. It is gouged clean through. So I'm at a bit of a crossroads right now. So it's Sunday. Fluidampr is going to be here Friday. Oil pump won't be here until tomorrow night. So what I'm debating doing is bringing the block to my machinist, have him deck it, clean it, balance the crankshaft and polish it up again. He should be able to do that all tomorrow, if not by Tuesday. And then I can assemble the head today. But what that'll let me do is I can machine open the pistons on the workbench instead of in the motor. So any debris, there's no risk of debris getting in here or anything like that. It's a little bit of a bummer because I was hoping to get a good bit of assembly done today. But what I'm gonna do now is pop out this galley plug right there. We'll knock the one out on the back. We'll knock all the freeze plugs out. I'm gonna text my machinist. I know he loves this Sunday text for me, and see if he can knock out just decking the block, giving it a wash. The cylinders actually look really good. So I might just hit them with like a dingleberry hone type thing instead of an actual hone, because I don't want to open up the cylinder walls. I just want to rehash them, and I'm going to order overnight some like OEM spec rings. So those are here Tuesday, and then if I pick the block up on Tuesday, I can start putting it all together, and the head will be ready today. Block can then be ready Tuesday or Wednesday, and I'll just have to slap it all together. Okay, so before I put the valves in the head, I want to do the math to figure out how far I have to offset the reliefs in the pistons. So you see I took the pistons apart so I can clean them. But these reliefs, let me flip you around. These reliefs are where, this is an intake valve, but the intake valve would open up into the motor, right? It would never be this close. We clayed it. This is a picture, so sorry if that comes out weird. And we had like 1/4 inch of height. So before we did the head shave, we had about 1/4 inch before the piston would, or the valve would touch. And that was at full VVT advance. And maybe if I darken this a little bit. So here you can see about 1/4 inch this way. But the problem is, as you shave the head, if this is the valve, as you shave the head, it effectively moves it down. So you can see it doesn't open it this way. It lowers the head 100 thousandths. And now the valve could hit over here. So what we didn't do was measure this distance from here to here. But what I'm going to do to be safe is a little bit of math. So I measured the angle of the valves on the head. I always thought it was like 22 degrees. This is saying it is 24 degrees, which is probably in the noise, it could be measurement error. So what I did then is it's just a right triangle really. So there's 100 thousandths that we took off this way. We know the angle of the opposite corner is 66 degrees, or the top corner is 24, however you want to do it. 66 degrees, which then calculates that bottom distance, which is how much the valve would in theory move over at full close, which is overkill for what we're going to be doing here. But the math comes out to about 44 thousandths, which is just under a 1/16 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is do a 1/16 of an inch pocket, or sorry, it comes out to 44 thousandths, which is just under a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm gonna do a 1/16 of an inch relief on these. I think we can get away without touching the exhaust. I might just do a little depending how fast it goes. But we're just open that up 1/16 of an inch out, and we should have plenty of room when we put it back together. This becomes more of a pain when you do oversized valves because now you have a 1/16 of an inch plus a millimeter farther diameter, which is another 40 thousandths. So you'd have to go 1/8 of an inch. And there's not that much meat on these to open 1/8 inch. I don't want to go all the way to the edge because it creates a point, and points in a combustion chamber are, it's like a hot spot. It attracts heat because it's sharp and pointy, and it's just a super easy, like, think of heating up a piece of sheet metal. If you're trying to heat the whole sheet metal up, even if you're focused on one spot, it's gonna take a while for the whole thing to get hot. Or if you're welding, I guess, and you're welding on a flat piece, it's really easy to weld on flat piece, but if you go to weld a corner, that corner takes heat like that, and it heats up and it'll blow away, and you don't want that. So I gotta be careful how far I go towards the edge. I'm gonna do a 1/16 of an inch, which should be more than enough. 1/8 of an inch is 0.125, so 1/16 is 0.0625. So it should be 20 thousandths more. Honestly, I could probably go a little over a 32nd if I wanted to and be safe, but I don't wanna have to do this in the car or in the motor, so if I can do them on the bench safely, we'll do that. But I'm gonna do that after I put the valves in, but the reason I'm doing this now is because I can take a valve and lay it on and trace a pretty good circle around it. I mean, I could really just trace this or just put a Sharpie mark and eat it until the Sharpie's gone. But I can set both of them up. I've got an exhaust valve around here somewhere also because I took them both out of the box. Hope I didn't lose it. There it is. And we would do the same on the exhaust side, just to open it radially just a tiny bit more. And we'll do that, 8 times on the intake side and 8 times on the exhaust side. And this is aluminum, so it goes pretty quick. All right, so let's go over what we're gonna do here. This is the refreshed shaved head. This is 100 thou taken off. We have all of our valves. They are all ground to each respective position. So it's 1 through 8. We have an OEM gasket set, which means we have OEM intake and exhaust valve seals. So these have to go first. We're gonna throw all these in. We'll flip the head over, we'll put all the valves in. And then for springs, like I said, we're gonna do these cat cam springs. This should go together really quickly. I've got the cams sitting over there. We'll put the cams in. We'll check lash. I should be able to get proper shims here in time. We never actually checked lash on this when we built it, or when we first put it in the car. So lash could be way out, especially now with the valve job. But worst case, I do have a lot of shims in my drawer. I might be able to find a couple that we need, but the head itself should go together pretty quick. All right, I put the buckets in, and then off camera, I measured all the shims. So I realized I've never actually shim checked this when it ran, so I don't know how far out these are. So what we're gonna do, I've got intake 1 through 8, exhaust 1 through 8, all measured up with a pair of mics. And then I'm gonna put the cams in now. We'll lubricate, put the cams in, we'll check the lash, I'll write it down, and then tonight I'll go inside and do the math on what new shims I need to order. All right, I'm getting a little ahead of the situation right now. I'm not gonna do the pistons today. It's almost quitting time for me, it's Sunday, so I am gonna do the fuel rail, I guess, and kind of finish the head. So I've put the intake and exhaust gaskets on. I had the shims in stock to set up the lash correctly, so everything is within spec for both sides. Nothing's a little tight, nothing's a little loose, it's all perfect. So, fuel, we are not doing OEM injectors. That's what this ran on last time, but now, since we're gonna be running flex fuel, we're gonna need a little bit more fuel capacity on the injectors, and for that, none of this is sponsored, so please bear that in mind. I've got Fuel Injector Clinic 365cc Miata injectors, and then just a radium fuel rail with a direct mount regulator, or their DMR, and a fuel pressure gauge. This is pretty much the combo I use on everything. It just works, it's clean. I'll have to get a feed for this side and a cap for this side, and then the return, which I got a Loctite, is gonna go down here in the bottom. So it's just a nice kit. We're gonna convert the car to AN, so we'll just be able to run an AN feed into the front here, and the return comes out of the bottom of the regulator. And it's nice because you can adjust your fuel pressure regulator without any tools. So we're just gonna set this on, lubricated everything. We'll bolt it onto the head, and then I'm gonna set the head aside. Oh, we'll put the front cover on, cams on it, or cam gears on it, and then this will be ready for bolting onto the head, or onto the block Tuesday. So progress is progress. It's not the pistons, but it is something that we have to do anyways, so let's just do it. So, kind of a mess, but just like that, we are ready to throw this on the engine block when it's done. So I did plug this with, I had a spare Super Miata one. I do make my own of these, but they were in the house, so that's plugged. This cap is on. I went around and plugged all the oil release holes, like for the journal cutouts, whatever you want to call them. Cams are on. They'll be torqued once I have it on the block, just easier to hold. Rail is on, regulator is on. It's got a swivel on the bottom here, which is really nice, and it can swivel this way. So fitment's pretty nice on this. I might have to take it off to put the valve cover on, but we're gonna see about that. If anything, it's just 3 bolts. So this is good, this is ready. I'm gonna set this aside, put a cover on it, and then I'll pick you guys up when we're doing the pistons and the engine block later this week. So the block is back from the machine shop. It's all clean. We just did deck on the head. He solvent cleaned the whole thing, so there's no more grime. I'm gonna hit it with some black paint. I painted the oil pan, which I'll show you guys later when we put it together. But we're just gonna paint it up so it looks nice and stops rusting, and then we'll put some freeze plugs in it once it dries, and then this will be ready to get assembled. Went pretty heavy, but once it dries, it'll be like a nice thick protective coat. And then we'll go in and we'll clean out all these ports for the freeze plugs, and we'll hammer in some nice brass freeze plugs that showed up today, and it'll be this really nice contrast, and then silver head, and then the cool valve cover, which I should have on Wednesday. So, and the oil pan, promise to show you. It's over here, this is just hot tanked, and then we use POR15 top coat silver to get it to clean up nice. I use it on every oil pan, customer pan. Here's the crank, it's all polished up, looking good. And then now we're gonna do a little side quest, or I'm gonna do a little side quest. I'm gonna go to my buddy around the corner, and we're going to open up the side clearance, so this way, on the rods. They are somewhere between 6 and 8 thousandths, and a little trick that my machinist told me is if you open them up to around 12 thousandths, it helps the oil push out and keeps like cooler oil in there, and it keeps the rods from getting hot, which also cools down your main journals and everything like that. So we're gonna try it. I'd never tried it on a customer engine, but this is my own, so if it's bad, I can just pull it out and fix it. But we're gonna go take about 4 thou off the side of each rod to bring them all into like the 10 to 12 thousandths range. So will we see a difference? Who knows? But the oil that came out of here was pretty cooked, and I don't run a temperature gauge, so I don't have any pre-data, but we're gonna find out. And I don't run an oil cooler, so. Welcome back. The block is painted and it has dried overnight, so everything is dry. We're gonna get this de-taped, put it on an engine stand, and we're gonna get to working on putting like the freeze plugs in and little stuff. Still waiting on the piston rings today. They should be here. My rods are off getting machined today, so I'll have them tomorrow. But tomorrow we'll be able to get the rotating assembly in and done. We can put the crank in today if we want to. And then tomorrow we'll just be essentially slapping rods into it. And then the head will bolt on. Valve cover should be done tomorrow also. And then we'll have a pretty much engine that's ready to receive the fluid damper. No surprise, my boundary oil pump that is a critical part of this build was supposed to show up yesterday. And FedEx, as always, lost my package or it just got delayed in some manner in Grove City, Ohio. Just always seems to be the pinch point. It says it's out for delivery today. Hopefully that's true because that way we can install it tomorrow and kind of finish the whole thing up. Fingers crossed. Okay, hopefully I'm not cropping my head here. I'm not trying to get super into specifics on how to build or rebuild a Miata motor in this video, Miata engine, whatever. If you want to see that, I have 3 engine build videos for BPs. I've got a standard 250 to 400 horsepower, I've got an ITB build, and I have a 500 horsepower build video, which we will be doing the chassis swap for later. I'm trying to keep this video just kind of overall of rebuilding the track car. We're just gonna kind of glide through this process. So I'm gonna throw the freeze plugs in it now. I should have done the rear one while it was off the stand, so I'll actually take it back off and do that. But front oil galley plug, 4 freeze plugs on this side, 4 freeze plugs on this side, and then we'll flip it over and we'll just get to throwing the crank in. So the crank is in, as you saw, it spun around really nice. I put the rear main seal housing on, torqued it down to spec, marked the bolts, and now that's kind of gonna sit. So we're waiting on rings to show up today. Yes, rings should show up today with UPS, I believe. And then we have to open up the pistons, the valve spots on the pistons, kind of to a best effort guess. We're gonna do that now. I'm waiting for the rods, which he's gonna do tonight, so I'll either pick them up tonight or grab them tomorrow morning. And then we're waiting on the valve cover. Water pump should be here Thursday, hopefully. And oil pump should be here today. It says it's out for delivery. So everything should fall into place. Thankfully, I only had a set of standard bearings. I didn't have a standard X. A lot of times I do a half set is what I call it, or a half stack. So I do standard and standard X, which gives you another half thou of clearance. So these spec'd right in, 18 to 20 thousandths across the board. This is a naturally aspirated motor. That is perfectly fine. 18 is my minimum. Even for turbo builds, I try to be a little 20 to 21 thou. But for a naturally aspirated car, 20 thou will be perfectly fine, especially with the rod side clearancing, getting some oil out of there. It should keep everything cooler. So I got them all pocketed out. You can see it's this radius in here and then this radius up here. It's obviously not perfect. I'm not a handheld CNC machine, so it will be fine. This is not something I would do for a customer car. I would have it professionally fly cut, but for my own car, it's perfect. So also, according to my buddy Daniel, these are 10.5 to 1 JDM pistons instead of 10 to 1 pistons, which means with the 100 thousandths head shave, this will actually be 13 to 1 compression ratio minus whatever I just hogged out here. So ethanol only, but I'm gonna be cleaning this out. It's gonna need a really good clean out. Just there's shavings everywhere. You can see it on me. It was just dust. It creates like a mist. But I'm gonna rinse these off. We'll put them aside until the rings get here, and then we can do some file fitting on the rings. Okay, I promised you guys I would go over the rod side clearancing once I got the rods back, which I just picked them up. I've put them on the pistons, the rings are on here, all that jazz. So let's just go over it. This is obviously one half of the situation, but see this shiny surface here? We opened each one of these up right about 2 thou per side, so 4 thousandths total, so made this 4 thousandths narrower. And it doesn't affect the bearing surface because there's a big chamfer there and everything. And it's maybe less critical on a stock motor because of these grooves right here that are there to get oil out. But what this does is it creates a wider gap between the crank and the rod. So when you have all this oil in here, pressurized up from coming through the oil system with this nice boundary pump we're gonna install, the oil wants to go somewhere. So we wanna get it out so that it doesn't sit in this bearing and just start getting really hot, especially with the kind of abuse that we put on the car. So a little more clearance hopefully gives us enough to just really evacuate all the oil. Only did it to the rods. Obviously we're not gonna do it to the crank. We don't want thrust on the crank or anything like that. But rods have side play in the piston. So it's not like they need to hold a critical vertical position as long as they are somewhere in there, and they'll self-center anyways. So not a huge deal. You don't want to go too loose to be ridiculous. I don't know what the limit is, but we are setting these right around 12 thousandths total side clearance. So you could do it on a belt sander if you want. That's how my machine shop told me to try it because this is my own motor. I brought it to my other machinist buddy who has a surface grinder, and that way we know this is all parallel, perfect, clean, and super precise. So these are ready to go in. I gotta put bearings in here. I'm just gonna do some King Race standards for now. Yes, King Race standard bearings. We'll get them in. We'll see if they're right. If not, we'll swap over to undersize and then put it back together. I've got about 20 minutes before I gotta go pick up my valve cover for this motor. So we're gonna try and get all these in. We're gonna do 1 and 4, check our clearances. If they're good, we'll throw 2 and 3 in, check those clearances, verify those clearances, and put them in. We should be all set on standards for this. So let's just get to it. Rotating assemblies together. They all clearance out at 2 thousandths with half stack oversize. So it's a standard and a standard X on the other side, and clearance is where I want it to be. Crank spins pretty nicely. I've had some that are looser and some that are tighter, and it's fine. So we're good there. I've cleaned off this deck. We've put clay on here. We're gonna throw the head gasket on, throw the studs, or throw the head on, and then we have to time it. So I gotta do the timing stuff up front. We'll have to do water pump and all that stuff tomorrow. But we'll get it all ready, and then we can time it tomorrow, check clearance here. And I opened all of these up the same. So they're all 1 inch on this side from the ledge, and 15/16 of an inch on this edge here. So if these clear by a fair margin, then we'll be good all the way across the board. And then this is here, just to see how close we are to the quench zone. It should be fine. Got to remember there's a spark plug in there that does stick out a little bit. So I don't have that in for the test, but we'll know pretty easy. So, all right, next up on the list is our Boundary Engineering racing oil pump. So if you did not see the video where I highlighted the difference between these and which one to pick for what use, I suggest you go check that out. It released on the 27th of February. So it's a lot of good info in there. I'm just gonna kind of glaze over this. This is a BP S2 with the billet backer plate and the Martinware heat treated internals. So this is a nice pump. These things are tested to over 9,000 RPM with the Martinware treatment, and it's just a super good kit overall. Travis and his team jumped on to help with this. They supplied this pump, so I'm really, really excited. I use this on all of the customer builds I do here, so to have one on my own car is kind of fitting. So to put this on, we're going to run a bead of RTV all through here, and then I do a little bit in this O-ring hole here, and then I'll put the O-ring in there. So just like that, you see a thin bead, and then I put a little in that hole just to hold the O-ring in place. This is not shimmed. This is only set to 72 PSI, which is what they come from the factory. So I'm gonna wipe this surface off with some acetone, and then we'll get this bolted up. I've aligned the flats with where they are on the crank. I should be able to slip right over that crank bolt. Slot that right in there. It's good to just let it touch. I'm gonna put some bolts in it with some light contact for a while, and that'll probably about 45 minutes to an hour, just so that the RTV can get a little hard, and then we'll bolt it together. If you bolt it together loose, or with the RTV being fresh, it'll just push all the RTV out and you can have leaks around it. So we'll grab some hardware and we will get it started. And because I know a lot of you are gonna ask, I am going to be offering a zinc hardware kit. Should already be out by the time this video series is out. But I've gotten so many messages from you guys wanting zinc hardware that it's probably about time I just do it. It is worth noting, this is not OEM hardware that has been re-zinced. This is McMaster car bolts. They have, the 10mm ones are still 10mm heads, but the ones that used to be 12s, these are 13s. So a little annoying. Okay. So I have some light squeeze out. I have some light squeeze out along the perimeter. That's good. I know everything's touching and it's making a seal and pushing stuff out. So I'm gonna let that sit for an hour, and I'm gonna go run to the city and grab my valve cover and come back. And when we come back, we'll torque that down. And then we'll bolt mark it. I'm waiting on a water pump tomorrow, so we'll get the pump on, and then we can time it, check it, take the head back off, make sure we're good, and if we're good, we can put it together for good. I'm gonna leave the oil pan off just in case we have to do any clearancing inside. That way we can clean it out pretty well. But let's go get a valve cover. Okay, so what you guys just saw was we put the timing system on, timing setup on, and here's the clay. So I spun it around, and this is 3-teeth advanced, which is more advanced than VVT actually goes, so we've even got more safety. Could take off more if I wanted to, but this is 100 thousandths, and what we realized is I had to cut that front timing plate, the metal plate that goes here, just so that I could fit the pulleys on. And then this is the pulley that we modified earlier, so it's at full tilt, or just shy of full tilt to the left. There's like 1.5 mil between the belt and this boss right here for the timing cover. And this one is pretty much full crank. It's like just shy of it, but that lets us be at TDC on the crank, and the cams are lined up perfectly. So I had to play with this a little bit to make sure we weren't half a tooth off or anything like that. We are not done, almost, but I want to go over this fantastic valve cover. So this is Prismatic Universe to Illusion Ruby, faded front to back. I'll do some close-up shots of it that I'll overlay here. Rock Coatings did this one for me. It was a little interesting request. I think I should have done black up front. It does look cool, it looks very cool in person. But everything is torqued down on here, and we've got all the timing covers on the front. We gotta do the water pump pulley still, and we have to do the rear VVT up pipe, which I have sitting in the corner. But this is all assembled, OEM gaskets, everything's timed, and we are almost ready for the Fluidampr tomorrow. It is 6:30 p.m. I'm gonna go eat dinner, and then I'm gonna come back and we'll do the up pipe, I'll do the water pump pulley, and I'm gonna clean up the mess that is the shop right now. So I'm here with Nick from Fluidampr, who's gracious enough to drive out here from Buffalo to bring us a pulley for the track car engine.
Thanks for having us. So yeah, we brought your Miata damper here, and then I did bring a couple things to show how they kind of all work, you know. So all the dampers are basically built the same. They have a steel housing, there's an inertia ring inside, and then we laser weld the cover. And then these are our fill ports, so this is where the silicone actually goes in. So this is the silicone here, which is 45,000 times thicker than 30-weight motor oil. So it's extremely viscous.
Balls just hanging there, yeah.
So yeah, so it'll take quite a while for that to drop down. But it's just showing how thick it is. Like we can actually open it and, I mean, it's,
Do the Dairy Queen challenge, yeah.
yeah, like it isn't, it's not coming out. So this is the silicone that's inside there. So it's not completely full of silicone. A lot of people kind of think that it is, but it really isn't. So the silicone's actually just around the inertia ring here. So there's a shear gap in there.
Okay.
So this inertia ring sits in a bed of silicone. So as the engine's running, this floats in there. So as soon as you fire up the engine, torsional vibration is present. And torsional vibration is the twisting of the crank beyond its natural rotation and then rebounding. So what happens is, as your engine's running, this will turn it into, it will absorb it, turn it into heat, and then it's dissipated out of the housing. So as the way our damper works, as the engine's running, this will self-center and it'll float inside the silicone. And we call it going in and out of phase, but so this moves freely inside and it's a complete circle all the way around. So as this is moving, that's what's doing the secret stuff, like the removing the
damping,
torsional vibration and the damping. One of the really great benefits that our damper has that no other damper on the market has is what's called rotating weight. So this damper, we're just going to use some false numbers for right now, but so this damper, say it weighs 10 pounds, when the engine's running, the crank is only feeling 2/3 that weight. So it may be feeling about 6.5, 7 pounds of the actual weight on
Because
the crank.
that's suspended.
Because it's suspended in the air. You're still pushing that down the road or
Yeah.
the racetrack or anything like that, but it is an added benefit
Yeah,
that
I mean,
no other has.
I balance all these engines and make everything as light as possible, so
Yeah,
that
so
would,
that's
yeah,
it's a great
it's
key.
drivetrain loss, right?
They're 100% made in the USA, right in our facility in Springville, New York. So everything is done. The only thing we don't do in-house is actually the coating that's on the dampers. We send that out to a local facility, they do the coating, comes back to us, it gets inspected, and then we laser engrave them, box them up, and ship them out. So it's a great product. They never wear out, they never go bad. They never need to be rebuilt or retuned, unlike our competitors' dampers and your OE damper. Those all need to be maintained, retuned, rebuilt. So it's basically a one and done product. And a lot of people will be like, well, that's kind of, why would you do that? Well, there's millions of engines in the world, so it's not like
It's not all about the money.
Yeah. So we build the best product we can, we overbuild them, and we put out the best absolute product we
Yeah.
can.
Okay.
Other than me.
Gotta get the orientation right.
One of the nice things we did actually when we did that plate is put that little pin in there, so that guide lines up.
Yep,
and,
the pin is very nice.
Holds your
Yeah.
trigger wheel in place, so you basically can't mess it up.
Yeah, the only thing you can mess up on these is these can be flipped, and some companies will mark like crank side,
Oh, right.
engine side, or whatever.
Which is a great tip to know.
Yeah. And you just try to start your car, and you're like, man, why is it just my trigger's way off? Oh, satisfying click. All right, it has quite literally been almost 4 months, probably to the day, that I have worked on this. I think we put it together at the end of April, beginning of May, right after I got back from Germany. I have forgotten a lot about this since then because it's just been sitting in the corner while I work on customer stuff, and I've had a lot of travel and stuff to do. So we're gonna get it together, and we're gonna get it in the car today. So this is obviously 13:1, 100 thousandths head shave with JDM 10.5:1 pistons. I have relieved the pistons to clear the valves, if you didn't see that part. And I had to, because we took so much off the head, I had to do this. So there's 2 adjusters in here to get the belt tension right. And I don't love it because this, it's torqued down, but if it moves, I can lose tension. So actually what we're doing is Bryn over at Rear Axle Divergence in England makes this little piece. So this is a much bigger pulley off like some European Kia. It was very expensive to get this pulley here. I think it cost me like $150 just for this pulley. This will take up the extra slack in the belt. I think this is good for up to 100 thou. So that's what we've done. We can't really go much farther than that. And I'm gonna swap this off. We'll pull this off. Probably have to take the valve cover off just to make sure everything's timed correctly. And then we'll put it back together. Catch you up on other things that I've done off camera today. We've got the Chatham CNC intake manifold. I don't know if this was on before or not. I put this on like a couple months ago. Radium fuel rail with fuel injector clinic injectors. We have a Bofi Racing clutch. This is their hybrid, 6-puck on one side, full face on the other. And then a 4.9 kilogram flywheel. Also from Bofi Racing, it's the RPC. And then I've also converted the coolant neck like an idiot to dash 16. So this is gonna be really expensive to make a hose, but I wanna come out and under this intake manifold just with a 90. And I think the last thing is this Greddy oil filter, thermostatic oil filter piece. So this will run to an oil cooler on the front of the car. I hate oil coolers. I hate oil coolers because it just causes more leak points. So I never ran one, but when we took the bottom of this motor apart, while it never overheated the coolant, you could smell that the oil had been absolutely cooked. So we're putting this on so that hopefully this engine lasts. Not that it wasn't working fine, but I want this to last. I don't want to keep doing this, pulling it out. So what we're gonna do now, blast the timing apart, and then we'll put the bigger pulley on it. I'm just gonna like kind of cut forward to it, and then I'll show you how that kind of works. And we'll put the timing on it, or timing covers on it, crank pulley on it, and then transmission, and throw it into the car. This was much easier than doing the dual pulley system. You can just see the scale of how much bigger this one is. I didn't have to take the valve cover off, which is sick. I just slid in the Flyin Miata timing tool and was able to lock it in place. You can see intake exhaust is lined up. We are at TDC. This is not actually all the way maxed out. So there's a little more we can do, but the belt has good tension. I'm happy with it. So now we can put the timing covers back on it, put the crank pulley on it, and transmission, and put it in the car. Not my finest work, but I had issues where, because I shaved so much off the head, this cover like steps in before it steps back out, and it was hitting this pulley here because this pulley's bigger. You can see how it's supposed to sit kind of underneath this lip. This one is proud of it. So I tried a couple times to like notch it and whatever, but the bolt location, so this thing, was actually rubbing on the pulley. So I just figured, just cut it off. It still works, it's still securely mounted. There is a little bit of gap for stuff to get into, but we ran this without a front cover or this cover for like 4 years without any problems. So we'll be all right. Not ideal, not the prettiest thing, but we've got alternator on, water pump pulleys on, this is on, everything is torqued down, and we are ready to pick it up off of my welding table, ergonomic friendly workstation, and we will slide a transmission onto it and get ready to put it in the car. There are a couple things I'm going to change on the trans, like I will be doing Deutsch connectors for neutral and reverse safety, just because the factory ones tend to fail, but that's like a 2-second thing, and we'll have to do it. That's not the race car. We'll have to do it on the track car as well. And then there was one other thing that is evading me right now. But I think we're good because we have oils plugged, this is capped. We've got the injectors in. We are waiting on some 6 ORB caps for the ports on the underside of this, but I'll be able to do those when it's in the car. I'll just come up from underneath. And then I have the header. I gotta put some studs in here, but the header is ceramic coated, ready to go. I picked it up yesterday. I have also been waiting for that for like 6 months, so it was like a do it when you get to it type deal, but that's ready. So now that that is here, we can put the whole package together and slide it into the car and have like a, you know, a shell with a motor in it. Now we're ready to put it in the car. So got the header Cerakoted. It is a good old Raceland that we've welded. It's welded on the inside, so don't worry about the gaps there. We got it Cerakoted, put a V-band on the end of it. That's been like that forever. Transmission is on. I switched these to Deutsch connectors, one male, one female, so you can't mix them up. I've got the wiring harness on it, so I've got the injectors, I've got cam and crank sensor, VVT, coil, they all go to Deutsch connectors. This is an older harness. I made this, I think like 4 months ago. I have much nicer wiring stuff now, so I might redo this with Tefcell and like labels and stuff like that. It comes out much nicer, but for now, to get the car running and probably to shake it down for this year, this is fine. And then if I want to over the winter, I can redo it. I have the wiring harness for these in the car already. So this is fuel pressure, oil pressure's down there. NOx sensor is part of the injector harness. So engine mounts are on. Now let's get Russell's car off the lift and put mine on, and then this thing should just pop right in. There is a sight I have not seen in a long time. So car's on the lift. I have done some work to the like engine bay stuff months ago. So we've got fan connector right here. It's obviously very stripped of wiring, but this is, well, this is our setup for oil and fuel pressure. All of it's run into a nice little bulkhead here, which is cool. And then we've got a bunch of other stuff. So one of these is going to be injector, which is this one. This one, if I had to hazard a guess, is the spark. One of these is going to be cam and crank sensor. And then the 6-pin is another one. I have it all written down, but I've also got flex fuel wired in, and the bulkhead right now is just terminated on the other side. So I'll be making a new harness, which goes to the new ECU. And as you can see, it's dummy proofed. So even though there's 2 4-pins here, one is male, one is female. So over here, I've got 2 4-pins. So the one that will go into the female is our coil pack. The one that will go into our male is our cam and crank sensor. And then we've got the coil pack is the other one. And, oh, I know what this is. This is the grounds. One of these is the grounds. Oh, this 6-pin here, I just remembered, is the grounds, so I gotta put that on. Let me show you. So I got sick of bolting and unbolting grounds to the motor when you have to remove it. I wanted it to just be Deutsch connectors, so this I have to install. Goes right back here on the head, and then that's all your grounds to the chassis, and then you just click it in, and you're grounded, and when you want to pull the motor, you just pull it, and you leave this on the block. I took it off for some reason, but most of the time this will stay on. So I'll throw this on, and then everything is obviously out, so we will be ready to throw the motor in. For the sake of time, here's where we're at. Radiator is loosely mounted. I'm waiting on bushings for the top corners. And then engine is in. The wiring is all hooked up. I still gotta tighten the starter. But wiring is all hooked up. OEM stuff here. Fuel is not. I'm gonna be removing the charcoal canister vent line, or at least cutting it farther back. Fuel I'm gonna map out tomorrow. Coolant lines, we gotta go from here to up here, which I'm gonna be laser cutting a plate that goes here. So I'm gonna measure up a coolant neck, or one of these tonight to draw this out, and then I'll just weld a plate, and then we should be able to do like a straight or 45 to 45 or something. Upper coolant hose as well. That's going to be a long run, dash 16 all the way back. PPF is in, drive shaft is in, exhaust is up. And that's about it for down here. All this stuff is hooked up. I've ordered a new one of these because that one was missing. And then up top we've got, again, like I said, radiator is loosely in, just needs 2 bolts. Oil cooler, I'm gonna figure out a mounting solution. I think I wanna put it either on its side or separate from the radiator so that it's not getting heat soak from the radiator, but we'll see. I'm gonna look into it. No air gap would be ideal just for airflow. That way it's not like dispersing out. But putting it somewhere up here so it gets clear air might also be very good. So I'm gonna do some looking into that. Obviously throttle body is not here. I have one. I have a a Bosch one, but I don't think we're gonna use that. I think we're going to use a Ford one. And we will be building an intake this time that comes over to here. And then I'm gonna print a turn signal intake that's just the opening, whole opening. So we'll have a filter right here and we will get direct air from the front instead of, it used to go through there, which was great, really cool air out there. But if you drive in the rain, it's right in front of your tire. So it does get wet and we don't really wanna damage anything here. So wiring's all plugged in. Super easy because it was all just pre-done. You just hook it all up. It took me like 2 seconds. I still need to run the slave cylinder over and put the shifter in the car. Right now we're just gonna run a standard shifter. And then I need to start doing some wiring inside, and I gotta do throttle body stuff out here, fuel system stuff, which is just gonna be feed line, and then return to the flex fuel sensor and flex fuel sensor to the return line. I'm either gonna convert these to AN or I'm going to just run a hose to an AN fitting up there, like a 6 AN to 5/16 hose barb. So it's been a week, trying to work on this on the weekends only just to keep progress on all these other cars going on here. But I'm gonna update you. Dylan and Cam came over on Sunday of last week, so the day after I filmed all the other stuff. And we did a bunch of work on the car. Very, very productive. So I'm gonna catch you up on where we're at. I'm gonna show you what I'm hoping to get done today, what we still have to do. Dylan is probably coming over later to do some more work on the car. So we'll probably knock some stuff off camera. It's kind of a lot of boring or not really visually monumental steps. So this light barring is really pissing me off. So I won't film it, but I'll catch you guys up. I made this yesterday. So this is a 16 AN on a water neck adapter, and I'll show you where this goes. So we don't run air conditioning or anything, so I made this guy to bolt right up here. And that way we can run our 16 AN to the radiator down there. Oop. We got our drive-by-wire throttle body installed. This is a Mazda part number. It's like a Mazda Ford drive-by-wire. I don't have the part number off the top of my head. I think it's like CA01 something 640. It is on Chatham CNC's website because it's a direct bolt-on option. So I'll be wiring that in today. We made this flying lead harness, so drive-by-wire cables and intake air temp, which is originally what this was, but I can't remember where I tied this into. And I'm just gonna make a new bulkhead connector that goes in. It's just way easier and way cleaner. So overnighted the connectors, everything's over there. So we'll be doing the wiring stuff today. We gotta finish mount the radiator. We've gotta do the oil cooler lines. We mounted the oil cooler up here. So we cut some notches out, hung it upside down, and then I've 3D printed these NACA ducts so we have full airflow. 3D printed a turn signal intake that is fully open and a NACA duct on the hood. And the plan is the filter will go right here. We'll get a direct shot of cold air. We'll have a longer intake length. This is 3-inch, so I can run a 3-inch line over. Gonna be a little tight with this, but we'll make it work. Probably a 3-inch silicone 90 and then titanium charge pipe over. We got Dylan to make up the fuel lines. So these are PTFE or Teflon lined 6AN to 6AN adapters on the rail down here that you can't see. This is going to be an ethanol only car, or really race gas, but really we're just going to run E85 in it, being 13-to-1 compression, and I can get E85 at the pump locally. So that is all set. We got the throttle pedal installed. So this is a Nissan 350Z throttle pedal. I cut and welded it to the bracket. Factory bracket, that was a pain to get in and out of there, but I've got the plugs for that as well. That's this Johnny right here. So we've got a lot of wiring left to do. So we got to do oil cooler lines, coolant plate, which is in my hand, coolant lines, drain the 93 out of the tank, fill it with E85. I've got like 6 gallons over there. We got to install the DW200 ethanol safe fuel pump. I got to wire in the pedal, wire in the throttle body, fill the fluids. We got to run vacuum lines. I got a vacuum block. I got to build an intake. I got to wire into the ECU, and we got to install the O2 sensor. I'm sure there's plenty more that I'm missing, but that's like the basics. Obviously, we need some sort of base tune to fire it up on ethanol. But all in all, last week we made a ton of progress. So it's one of those things like, if I come out here alone, I'm like, oh, I'll do 1 or 2 things. When it's me, Cam, and Dylan, it's like very motivating because like one person just hops onto the next task, and I'm like, oh, well, while they're doing that, I'll do the next thing. So I'm hoping when Dylan comes back today, we can make some more good progress. I thought we were going to be able to start it this weekend, but I now have plans tomorrow, so I will not be working on it tomorrow. But I think we'll make some good headway, and we'll be much closer than we were 2 weeks ago when the motor was not in this thing. So I'll catch you guys up once we do this stuff, and I'll like show you guys what we did. If we do anything crazy cool, I will pick the camera up, but I really just want to make some progress and get this thing running. It is September 6th, so I want to be able to drive this thing, tune it, shake it down before MiataCon and before Friendsgiving at Barber, which is, MiataCon is the last weekend of October, and Friendsgiving is the week before Thanksgiving. So definitely still a lot of work to do, but we're making good headway. It has been a very long, it's 8 p.m., but productive day. So between Dylan and I think we probably put effectively 11 or 12 hours into the car. I was doing some wiring on a customer motor, and then I hopped on wiring on here. Dylan knocked a bunch of stuff out. We ran into some roadblocks that we need to like cut custom tools to fit, but I'll show you where we're at. So it looks not much different, but Dylan made this coolant hose. So this is a -16 coolant line. The rear, we need to cut a 39mm crow's foot because it's very tight in there. Obviously, worst case, we can remove the coolant reroute, tighten it, put it back on, but I'd rather not do that. I'd rather have a tool that I can remove it. So Wolfie's gonna plasma cut a wrench, essentially, or like a crow's foot, so I can get in from an angle and tighten it. Wiring is done. So we have drive-by wires wired in, IAT is wired up. I've got 2 bulkheads now, so the one on the left is everything else, and the one on the right is drive-by wire and idle or intake air temp, because we don't have idle air control with this throttle body. We drained all of the 93 out of the system, and then we put E85 in. So this car is, well, it's on E70 right now, roughly, but it's on flex fuel or ethanol. Dylan swapped out the fuel pump for a DW200 that's ethanol compatible, and then I wired in the ECU. So it's kind of a mess, just because there's a bunch of jumpers, but we need, 6 wires off the throttle, 6 wires off the throttle body. There's 2 wires for IAT, there's 3 wires for flex fuel, there's 4 wires for oil pressure. There's 2 wires for the other 2 injectors. There's just a lot of wiring that has to go into this, but it is wired. I do have to do a jumper inside the ECU. So it's just soldering wire from an AV to a different output. Nothing crazy, it just gives me an extra output for drive-by-wire. And then, yeah, so we don't have a lot left. I will show you. We would have gotten more done if it was on the lift, but we have to finish the coolant lines. I got to tighten the rear. We cross-threaded this one on the fitting itself, so I have a new fitting on the way. Got to fill the oil, put a dipstick in. We got to fill the transmission. We got to fill coolant. I'm going to run a vacuum block. So this intake manifold has a bunch of vacuum ports down here. I just want one. So that's going to go in the rear, maybe, or it'll go up front here. And the line will run to a vacuum block, and then we'll tee off from the vacuum block to the ECU and to the fuel pressure, and that should really be it. Because we're running manual brakes, we don't need a brake line. No boost, so we don't need a boost reference. So that vacuum block will go on the wall. It'll have extra ports if we want to add any other sensors or anything that require vacuum. So it's just a nice little clean way to do it. We don't have any lines up there, so we can put it kind of wherever we want. We might chuck it over here, so we can just run the map line down into the cabin that way. And then what else is left? I got to throw the O2 sensor in it. I got to put the clutch slave in it, which I have. It's just sitting over there. ECU jumper, and then I have to build an intake. This coolant line poses a little bit of a problem because I wanted to put the intake over here. So we're going to see if we can do a 90-degree silicone coupler here. It might get a little squished or something, which we don't really care about, because the longer intake runner you have, the more power the cars make. It's like, I think like 24, 25 inches is a sweet spot. So I'm gonna just make it over there if I can. If not, we will pivot and we'll do a little like 45 and come right down to here. And just like either open that hole up or put the intake duct over on this side, because I have a headlight duct for both sides if I want to do that. I just think coming across titanium would be really cool. So, and I have a bunch of 3-inch titanium, so it'll be, you know, won't cost me anything. But that's really all that's left. It could, in theory, fire up with, you know, if I did the clutch slave, the ECU jumper, the O2 sensor, the vacuum lines, and the oil. It could fire up. I might as well just do everything while I have it, but yeah, we're a lot closer than I thought. Last week I had some high hopes that it was gonna fire up this weekend, but now tomorrow I'm doing stuff with my wife for fall, and then with waiting on a couple other things like the coolant line and whatnot. It's gonna put it back, but maybe next weekend. I might tinker on it this week after my day is over, and just try to like knock one thing off a day, so that when we get to Saturday or Sunday, we have time to upload the map, do all sorts of stuff, test a bunch of things, because with all of this wiring, I guarantee you there's something that is not correct. So I'm gonna wanna run a bunch of tests and do a bunch of everything before I fire it up, because, oh, we gotta put a catch can on it too. Because it is very expensive if this does not go right. If I gotta pull the motor back out, then this, and do any work on it, then this season's pretty much over. So we'll see. Fingers crossed, but I'll pick you guys up once we get back to work. All right, ladies and germs, we have done everything on the list except for, I still have to tighten the rear coolant line, I still have to fill the coolant, and I still have to build an intake. But all the wiring is done, the pedal's good, everything is calibrated. I spent 8 hours troubleshooting yesterday. Did make this coolant line, so this is good and tight. This is tight. It's just the one back there. So I had the injector 3 wire was yellow with green, and the coolant wire was yellow with blue. So somehow I flipped those around, so I was getting weird backfeed. That's fixed. Drive-by-wire works. IAT works. Had that pinned in correctly. Pedal works. Everything works. I just did a test of the coil, and there was definitely fuel in the cylinder because it shot a fireball back. So coils all work as they should. 1 and 4 are together, 2 and 3 are together. Injectors all work 1 through 4. They are sequential. And then last night, I spent a questionable amount of time on ChatGPT going through and making like a fuel, ignition, all that, timing maps, warm-up enrichment maps, everything that I could think of for this. So this tune currently is 100% ChatGPT minus me setting up like the injector sizing and dwell, and then the R8 coil dwell. But other than that, and the trigger wheel, trigger offset for the 36.2, but all of the adjustable tables have been done with ChatGPT. I had a buddy look over it and it looks okay. So we're gonna try to start it. I have a fire extinguisher that I will be prepping and leaving nearby, and we effectively can try to start this thing. I don't have a digital or a physical oil pressure gauge, and I have not cranked it to confirm oil pressure. So it's got a Boundary big boy pump on it. I pre-packed it. It's full of oil. It should be fine. So I'll set up the oil pressure gauge on here, and then we're just gonna fire it up, see what it does. Had to change oil pressure pin around because this is an NA6. I had to use a different one, jumpered it in the harness, all that stuff. So that should be good to go. I'm gonna hook the fuel pump up, and then we'll see if it fires. I think we need more battery juice. Amazing. Let's do that again. So obviously still a lot to do, but it does fire up. It has 55 pounds of oil pressure at about 850 RPM, which is what we want to see. That's on 2050. It's got some pretty loose bearing clearances, so not really out of this world unexpected. Wolfie is cutting me a wrench to tighten the rear coolant line. We'll fill it with water, and then I got to build an intake for it, throw a dipstick in it tomorrow, and then we can start to get to the actual tuning side of it. I'm gonna be doing a little bit of road testing out here. I live in the middle of nowhere, so like I can do some like casual driving around the back streets here to make sure that nothing is like crazy bad. But the actual tuning, load tuning, stuff like that will be done on a dyno. So we'll be taking this thing to Ready Imports over in Victor. They've got a dyno that I can rent. Daniel can remote in. He can do the actual tuning. I'm not gonna trust ChatGPT to do that for me. At least not on, you know, if it was like a throwaway motor or just like a stock car that I had an ECU for, sure, but I do want to drive this thing this year. So we will be getting some 15x9 Kogekis thanks to Flyin Miata. So I'm waiting on those to get sent out here. We'll put some 245 tires on it, and that on its own, not including the extra horsepower, should help significantly with track times. So very excited. Sticky tires, more horsepower. What more do you want? So I'll pick you guys up probably once it's like running well and we're doing some street driving and stuff like that. And then we'll of course record the dyno, and I'll get you some numbers because I'm very curious. I'm hoping it makes like 175-ish. It's on ethanol, very high compression, and big intake. So I guess we'll see. So we're back on the lift. I did admittedly do a first test drive around the block after I let it run, I let it idle, I checked everything for leaks. There were a couple small things to fix. I drove it up and on the street, and I'll put a picture of the oil pressure versus RPM log here. So a good rule of thumb for oil pressure is a minimum of 10 psi per 1,000 RPM. So 7,000 RPM, 70 pounds of oil pressure. 3,000 RPM, 30 pounds of oil pressure. As you can see by that graph, we were good, 45 pounds, everything like below 4,500 RPM, we were fine, but the oil pressure graph kind of plateaus and RPM keeps going. So we peaked at 51 pounds of oil pressure, 51 psi, and the car obviously ran up to 7,200 or whatever I ran it to. Of course, at this point, your mind starts running like, what did I do wrong? What did I put together incorrectly? But I recall I had been watching a Gears and Gasoline episode from his MR2 on the dyno like 3 weeks ago. Well, it's end of September, but 3 weeks ago. And he had good oil pressure. They put an oil cooler on. He had bad oil pressure. I thought I went big enough with the oil cooler. This is a 10 AN cooler, 10 AN lines. But being that it is my own car, it's just whatever Amazon parts. So it is an Evil Energy oil cooler, Evil Energy 10 AN fittings. The lines are pretty long, and you have a pressure drop over line length. So I'm hoping, I'm gonna knock on wood, that my problem is the oil cooler. I've never run one before on this car. It definitely needs one, especially when we like hot lap the car. The oil gets very hot. If it's just me driving it, it's probably okay, as long as I stay on top of the oil changes. But I want to prove that I'm hopefully right, and the easiest way to do that is to ditch the oil cooler and then just throw a stock filter on it and take it up and down the street and make sure the oil pressure is where we want it. So I'm gonna do that now. Thankfully it's 2 bolts here. Undo the filter, undo the lines, take the sandwich plate off and the stud adapter, and then just throw a stock filter back on it, and we should be good to go. So it's the reason I think I'm right is because when the car is cold, it's a thermostatic oil cooler. When the car is cold, it's got 50 pounds of oil pressure just sitting there. So like cold idle, which granted, yes, it is a little low. You'd think cold would be like 60 psi, whatever, but it's got 50 pounds. And then when it's warm, it gets down to like 23 pounds, which I think is when the oil cooler opens, like thermostat opens and it pumps all the oil through and all my oil pressure drops, because it's a pretty quick drop from like 35 pounds to 25 pounds. So I think it's the oil cooler. We'll pull this off. I'll hook my laptop up. We'll get it up to temp. We'll see if anything changes. If it's not that, then it is possible that the relief valve in the oil pump is stuck and it is relieving pressure at 51 pounds. We'll see. So what we're gonna do now, rip that out, and then we will hopefully not make a huge mess, throw a filter back on it, and I'll grab the laptop and we'll see what's going on. All right, so just ripped the cooler out, just cooler adapter, everything is gone, and I just put a stock oil filter back on it. So gonna hook the laptop up, gonna data log, cold start, turn it on, let it warm up, see what happens. If this does not work, then we have to pull the motor out and either take a look at the pump, see if the relief valve is stuck, or whatever else may have to be done. So I'm really, really, really hoping this is it, because if I have to pull the motor out, I don't know if I'll get to it before winter, or at least get it out and get it back in before winter. In theory, it's not too hard because everything is made up now, so it would just be unplug, remove, flip over, pan off, pump out, reassemble, hope it works. we'll see. So let's get the laptop hooked up. We'll get power to everything, and then we'll find out. Yep. So, I mean, I just hit 560 kPa of oil pressure, which 560 kPa to PSI is 81 pounds. So, it is not a stuck relief valve. I think I'm right. So we got a bit of catching up to do. I have a trusty cameraman, Daniel, also my tuner here. For starters, we have a new sponsor for the track car and kind of the channel in general, and that is Flyin Miata. So they shipped us out a set of 15x9 Kogekis in black. We've been needing more grip and like a little bit more tire under the car for a while, especially with hopefully 175 horse. So put some Kumo Extra V730s on here, and we're gonna test them out at Limerock at the end of this week, which we'll get some footage on as well. These are satin black. These are discontinued, but they have the bronze and they have, I believe, a gunmetal color. We have these on NCs. There's another NA in the shop with a set of these on it, and they just look fantastic. They're lightweight and they are affordable for what they are. So, you know, if I hit a wall again, it's not that big of a deal to replace one. We're gonna get these mounted up. They should clear stock fenders. These are kind of rolled and pulled, so I don't think we'll have any issues at all. And this is a 225, so kind of a stretch, but you could do a 245 on these and get away with it. I just don't need that much traction. So yeah, let's get them mounted up. So they also sent us out some lug nuts, which are sweet because they have your torque spec on the side. So in case you're ever curious, you already know what you need to be at. And we'll torque them on the floor, but I gotta put 3 others on, so. So I forgot to say, this was like a couple weeks ago now, I took the oil cooler off and oil pressure came back to where it was supposed to be. So it's just a bad quality intercooler setup, or not, oil cooler setup. At some point we'll put like a Setrab 7-row or something like that on there with proper fittings and stuff, not a Evil Energy catch can line setup more or less. But we've got some other updates. Intake is built, clamps will be here today, titanium for unnecessary reasons. But I wanted to run it over, I just couldn't turn 90 by the time I hit this unnecessary bung. But we've moved the headlight duct in here, and then there's the port from the old intake down there. So it'll get plenty of cold air. It's just not the length that everybody suggests is best. So we'll see what it makes on the dyno tomorrow. So made a couple mistakes. Did not film anything at Limerock because it got hectic. And then also I'm gonna cut to this clip from the beginning of the episode.
So we made pretty quick work of that. We pulled the motor out, we drained the diff fluid.
You'll see there we drained the diff fluid, and no other part in this episode have we filled the diff fluid. So diff blew up on the second lap, just was howling behind me. So we ended up, I bought a diff from Flyin Miata while we were there. We swapped it in the parking lot between sessions, didn't miss a session, made it back out. Car ran great for the rest of the time there, minus a couple little teething issues. But I will not be showing any footage from Limerock because I want to be able to speak to it. But we are going to Barber for Friendsgiving at the end of this week. So it's Monday today, we leave on Thursday. Track day is Saturday, Sunday. So I have times from Barber from previous years, and I will be able to compare them to this year. I will tell you at Limerock, I took off 3 seconds from my previous lap time. I ran a 1 minute flat 0.16, so 1.00.16, or was it 1.3 maybe. I'll put the real time here. So I was close, but by the time I was out for a flyer on the last session, the track had cooled off. I was up on the aim solo. I was up enough for me to get a fastest lap, sub 1 minute, but the track just didn't have the temperature. I didn't have the skills, so I went off twice really, but I went off once on my send it lap, and I just figured I'd call it a day there. So car ran great as it was. I had Emilio from 949 Racing drive the car. He gave us some setup changes, so we took some wing out of it, and then he suggested that I corner balance the car, which I should have done a long time ago. I just never had scales. I now have a set of Longacre scales. So yesterday I spent like 5 hours setting ride height, corner balancing. I set the splitter. The splitter actually had some negative rake to it, funny enough. So the splitter now has like positive rake to it, like a splitter's supposed to. The car is perfectly 50-50 weight distribution, left cross to right cross. It is 50.9% front heavy and 49.1% rear heavy. So it's a little nose heavy, which when we make the splitter out of Alumilite in the future, we'll be able to shift some of that weight backwards. And then left-right bias is trash just because, you know, me, and then the left side of the car is just typically always heavier. You have steering column, you have pedal box, you have all that stuff. So left to right balance is not great, but that doesn't really matter. So corner weight's perfect, front to rear, almost perfect. The diff has fluid in it. I did a full fluid change after the event. So transmission fluid, diff fluid, engine oil is all brand new. And then the one hang up, the little battery that, I don't know if we filmed it, but I put this Mighty Max battery in per Wolfie's suggestion. It did not like the super high compression setup on the car. Plus the ethanol, it required too much cranking for it to really, you know, want to start. So I've gone with a Noco NLP 30, which I'll show you in a second. It's a fairly sizable battery. It actually bolts in effectively to the stock mount, but it weighs, I think, maybe a pound or two. Has 700 cranking amps, and Bronson from Brofab starts his 12-to-1 LS Miata on that thing with no problems. So if it's good enough for that, it's going to be good enough for this. I have already test fired it. It does fire up, but I just wanted to catch base on where we are. I'll show you guys the battery, and then we'll chat a little bit more before we head down to Barber. So this is a Noco NLP 30. It's pretty big battery, but when I tell you it is extremely light, it puts that little motorcycle battery to shame. So currently waiting on one terminal for the power side. I snapped one off yesterday, but otherwise this is good. Uses the stock mount, bolts up great, and has a ton of cranking amps. So a couple other changes we've made to the car that are not functional in any way. We've got camera mounts. So I have a camera mount here for some footage for you guys. I have a roll bar mount on the back center, and I have one way up here. I have a driver's shot there, and then I have a pedal box shot there. And then I also have a rearward facing one so that when I pass Wolfie on track, I can get his reaction. But all decked out in cameras. I'm gonna go inside and charge all my GoPros, clear all my SD cards, and I'm going to try to get as much footage as possible for this event. I know this episode has been a lot of talking and not a lot of showing, so I wanna try and get some actual good in-car footage for you guys. It's just gets a little hectic at a track day, or you forget to turn the cameras on, or you just don't care because you're tired. Barber is a faster track than Limerock, so we might need more wing again. All over the place. I'm not a pro in this in any way. I'm learning as I go, and the hope is to kind of take you guys with me and figure out what we're doing, but it's pretty much ready. So yeah, I just gotta pack all my tools, pack my gear, charge my cameras, and we should be ready to do some driving. end of day 2. Day 1, set a personal best by like 3.5 seconds, ran a 1:45.98. And then today, we started blowing coolant everywhere, all up the windshield, and throttle position sensor started dying. So it is going on the trailer, but should be some simple fixes and it'll be back out much faster than we expected it to be. So here I am editing this video, and I'm right at the end of it, and I realized I never filmed an outro. So let me catch you up on where we ended up and what the status of the car is. You kind of saw it right there at the end. I haven't worked on it since we brought it home a month ago, but it's pushing coolant somewhere, and the throttle pedal, Eli and I drove about an hour round trip to go get another pedal sensor, but it was right part number, but it's like it was manufactured wrong, so it didn't fit, and it was $250, whereas a replacement is like $20 online. So I need to order a replacement. I will be keeping a spare with me, and yeah, we got it put back together. We did some driving on it, but it would randomly cut out because it would lose the second pedal signal, which the TPS uses as a safety. And if it doesn't see 2 inverse pedal signals, it will shut itself off. So it just wasn't worth it. Plus the coolant blowing out the windshield. I don't know. I think it's a cracked radiator is what it seems to be doing. I'll know once I pressure test it. But the car ran great. So 2024, last year I ran a 149.22, and this year I ran a 145.98. And on my fastest lap, I had a 44 predictive time. So if I could have kept it together, I would have taken off 5 seconds, but I'll take 4.5. Sorry, 3.5 seconds. It's pretty good. So I'm happy with it. The car runs like a monster. I did notice I was peaking oil pressure at like 60 pounds max. So we're just going to send it until it blows up at this point. I'm done developing that car. We're going to move on to the NC platform here shortly, both with a customer car, and then I'm going to build one for myself. So there will be some content around that as well. But car ran great. It was a good end of the season. Got 2 different tracks out of it, Limerock and Barber. Very happy with how it ran. Very happy with all the upgrades. And I am doing a push to get more content out, which is why it's 1 a.m. 12:40 a.m. and I'm still editing this video. So I've got some more stuff coming your way. We're going to do a full restoration on a 13,000 mile engine, zinc plating, vapor honing, powder coating, everything to get it into better than factory spec. That should be in the next month or so. And then yeah, just gonna work my butt off doing content, car builds, everything. I've been slacking, so I know that, and I appreciate those of you guys that stick around and ask me if I'm still making content or not. Here we are. So that's going to be a wrap, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching this 2 hour and 20 minute long video.